Right. Well, it's that time for our feature, and hope you all can settle in for a bit. Make yourselves comfortable. We're about ready, I think. Yeah. The feature for tonight is John Magee, and he's with the Leonard Pelletier Defense Fund, and he's got a lot of interesting stuff where he's got artwork and an interview with Mr. Pelletier and a videotape. So it's all going to be part of the feature tonight. So, like I said, if you could just get comfortable, I guess we'll get started. Hi, John. Hi.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much people know about Leonard Pelletier. He just observed his 47th birthday this past week at the prison at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas. He's been in jail almost 16 years because he was present at a confrontation near Wounded Knee, South Dakota in 1975 where 2 FBI agents were killed. At the time, Leonard was an outspoken leader of the American Indian movement, and even though he's an innocent man, he was the guy that they wanted to get, and the rest is history. He was framed right from day one. Initially, they indicted 16 people. They dropped charges on 12 people shortly thereafter. That narrowed it down to 4 people. One man proved he wasn't there. The 2 guys that Leonard spent that whole day with, his friends who had been camping in the camp with, were tried at Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and acquitted on self-defense. Ironically, if Leonard had statute with them, he'd be a free man today. But Leonard had gone to northern Canada to a place called Small Boys Camp. They had all fled the scene after this day. There was a day-long firefight. 2 FBI agents came racing onto the reservation. They said they were supposedly had a warrant for the arrest of a 15-year-old boy who had stolen a pair of cowboy boots the night before in a fist fight. They never had the warrant. It was basically a setup. On that same day, 1/8 of the Pine Ridge Reservation was signed over to the government for what they call a bombing range, which was actually rich in uranium. And many people think that this was a diversion. The FBI was going to prod this known AIM camp a little bit and try and create an incident. In 1973, there had been an occupation at Wounded Knee that wound up lasting 71 days. The 82nd Airborne Division was on standby, and General Westmoreland was there. The U-2 aircraft was used to spy on these people. But people from all over this country reacted and supported the Native people at Wounded Knee. There was a fellow here earlier who said that he had been at Wounded Knee. He wrote for the real paper at the time. There's a book called Voices from Wounded Knee, The People Are Standing Up. It's a great book to read. But elders had asked that people go to Wounded Knee and make a statement that they were tired of violence against Indian people, tired of this abject poverty they had to live in. And that occupation took place. 2 years later, Leonard Pelletier and other AIM people were asked by Chief Frank Foolsgrove, who died last year at the age of 98, if they would come back onto the reservation to offer some help from drive-by shootings, from just as outrageous violence, a killing a week. And Leonard answered and he said, yes, I will come. And they went there and they had a traditional encampment on a place called the Jumping Boat Ranch. When they came to trial, they began to refer to it as the Jumping Boat Compound. The FBI claimed that they had maps documenting sophisticated bunkers and electronics communication centers. But if you go there, there are root cellars, there are old broken down stables, and it looks the same today as it did in 1975. There never were any bunkers or sophisticated weaponry here. Leonard, at any rate, was captured in a Cree camp in northern Alberta called Small Boys Camp. He was brought back down. He was extradited from Canada on false evidence. A mentally disturbed alcoholic woman, Indian woman, was coerced into signing 3 separate affidavits, each one contradicting the other. Each one was submitted to the government of Canada. finally, on the third affidavit, they said she saw Leonard do it. She was there when Leonard did it. They extradited him. Later, when Leonard came to trial, she came forward and said she had never laid eyes on him. She didn't know him. They told her they were going to take her daughter. They told her the same thing that happened to Anna Mae would happen to her if any of you know who Anna Mae Aquash is. A whole different tragic story about a woman who came through Boston, a Micmac woman, helped to start the Boston Indian Council. She was in that camp. She lived in that camp with Leonard Pelletier, and she was killed later that year. Her body was found in the spring. And when they brought her in, they buried her hastily in the Poplar Cemetery at Putnam Ridge. Her family heard that a woman had been found, that obviously she had been missing. They had the body exhumed, and even though a federal government pathologist claimed that this woman had died of exposure, Anna Mae had been shot in the back of the head. And the FBI pathologist said he missed it. He missed the bullet. But there's a book written about her by Joanna Brand called Braveheart Woman. And she has a real strong link to the Boston Indian Council, which struggles to stay open today. So Leonard wound up in Judge Paul Benson's court up in North Dakota. Benson was a long time racist, anti-Indian judge, and allowed the defense to present somewhat of a case. Basically, he met with the FBI to find out what went wrong in the Cedar Rapids trial. That was the trial where Leonard's two friends were tried. And in other words, here's a man who's supposed to be an impartial judge, and he spends weeks before this upcoming trial meeting with FBI people to go over documents and say, well, they managed to sneak this piece of evidence in. We better not let that happen. And they literally have a graph of what to avoid, not to let them present this evidence, don't let them present that evidence. Leonard was convicted in his court and sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. He was shipped off straight to Marion, Illinois, to the federal prison there, where apparently there's a documentary making the rounds on public television about Marion. And one of the things they said that struck me was, as it described the boxcar cells, behavior modification, mind control unit, was that the average stay at Marion was 3 years, and it was for the worst of the worst prisons in this country, the federal prison system. Leonard was a man with no police record, and he was sent straight to Marion, and he spent 10 years at Marion.